came back and said, hey, think about it. I said, yeah, I won't stay here. Okay, this is the third time I've talked to you. He's not going to give me a choice. Either you go there or you get out of here. I said, okay, I'll go. And it was a building that was in high school, 4 or 5 story building. And they converted it to grade school. It's had vacant for about 9 years. And after the grade school, we need so high school class because the kids that were in high school. In Venice, they had to change all the toilets and water fountains, everything, seats, desks, everything like they actually would do that for kids. So I really brought time when I went in to take over that summer. It was under construction, massive construction. We opened the school up. It was not really pretty. A lot of gang activity, bad behavior, bad choices. And I was able to stay there for 12 years. First time in my life. There's going to be years that you get to be there every day, every place with people. And I left there. Things happened in the family. Just stupid kids. Ended up in Photo Center with Eddie as assistant superintendent there. And was there for a short while, and I retired from the university. And then I jumped over to KCK. KCK's kind of been a roller coaster. My life was a test. So administration, principal, throwing in team, that kind of thing. So I've enjoyed it all. It can be frustrating now because you never know who's going to be the next person in charge. Missouri's got someone great right now. Right? Before that, there was no one great. It just wasn't. They were all horrible. 1 year, 2 years stop, 1 year, 2 years stop, break things up. So I've had an interesting career. My wife knows all about it. She gets to hear about it almost every evening. And so, good luck to those of you that are in administration. Just be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves, please? Since this is a very, very cozy conversation, and you don't mind if they stop you at any point in your stories to ask you questions. So,
my name is Monique Young. I am a professional school counselor as well as an education consultant. This is my coworker, Callie. But yeah, so for school counselors, we have a little bit of a different, I guess, pathway to leadership, I guess you can say. Basically, if you're a school counselor and you want to move into leadership, typically the next step up would be a director of student support or something like that. You don't really have kind of a further way into leadership, like an instructional coach or interventionist or anything like that. So basically, in my time of being a school counselor, I kept getting called to help other counselors, to write curriculum, a lot of things, but there was no opportunity to move up within my district. So I was kind of like, what do I do with that? So I took it upon myself to start my own education consulting business so that I could support more schools, specifically with building social emotional teams, and that's kind of at the forefront right now, especially with COVID and everything that's going on. So like I said, I had to create the opportunity for myself because I wasn't really seeing that opportunity in districts. Even though now I'm starting to see a lot of dean of culture positions and things like that. But that had kind of just started, and a lot of times when you start positions like that, you don't really have a clear line of what that's supposed to look like. So it's easy to be taken advantage of. So yeah, I just decided to go on my own route.
Oh, hi, I'm Jan Brew, and I teach at Politics Community College in Longview. I don't ever want to be in the industry. I love teaching. I work with students with Phi Beta Kappa, and that's leadership. And so I'm happy to help future leaders. I'm here to cheer you on. And when I saw this opportunity, often I have to work. And so this summer, I'm going to take advantage of these learning labs. But I have my support. Never, ever, ever.
You never know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and someone may come across you that is wanting to get connected.
And
So.
like I said, I know a future leader.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly.
Who wants this?
Exactly.
So I am there.
My name is Lisa Martinez. I am the Assistant Director for Diploma Plus at the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. It's our College and Career Readiness Department. So I lead and support our pre-K through 12 College and Career Readiness and real world learning. And so I'm just here because I love to learn. I'm a learner before I can lead. So I just fit my schedule perfectly, and we are in the administrative level where I'm in charge of our own professional development. And so, what better way to be professionally developed by leaders who have been doing this for a really long time. So I'm just here to learn and hear and hopefully soak up as much leadership nuggets that you guys can offer. Yeah, really excited to be here.
So how long have you been with KCK?
This is my 7th year with Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. So I started when Diploma Plus was birthed at KCKPS. And I've been a part of the team and kind of worked my way up from a specialist to a coordinator and now the assistant director. I am the longest standing team member in our department for the initiative itself. So I am just excited to learn. I had a really great opportunity. In the fall, was honored with an award through Latinx Collaborative. So just super excited to continue my learning and hopefully see how we can increase our representation in our administrative offices at KCK.
Yeah, those awards are driven by nominations too, so you know. And so Lisa's doing great work over at KCK. I will introduce myself really quick because I also want to tell you that we are live because some people reached out by email. We're like, I can't make it in person, but I really want to watch. So we're live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. Susana Lisa Arras, Deputy Director, Latinx Education Collaborative, former 6th grade teacher for 6 years in KCPS, right down the street at Gladstone. Northeast is my home pretty much from birth, and so I'm really excited that I continue to get to do work here. I actually went, Josie, to James as a kid, and then Scarrett, and then Northeast Middle, and so born and bred here actually in the neighborhood. So I'm excited to hear from you all because, as Dr. P and I talk about all the time, you are all unicorns, in really not just in Kansas City, but like nationwide. And I know the experience of a BIPOC teacher as a Latina teacher. I can't imagine, and it's why I didn't pursue administration, the experience that it is to be in administration, and how isolating that may be sometimes. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Very good. And I go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Lucina. Been an educator now 30 years. I can't believe that. I'm right behind you, Joseph. Started out as a Spanish teacher at South West High School. Only made it for a semester, then I got fired. I'm just kidding. Gilbert Guerrero snatched me out as one of the very few Latino teachers. I think there were 5 of us in 1991 in the Kansas City Metro instead of the 261. So there were 5 of us, and I was a neighborhood kid. Grew up on the west side, went to Switzer, Westport Junior, Westport Senior, graduated from there. And what was a tutor with the Skeleton program, plus I used positions ever since high school and middle school. And came back as a teacher from K-State and didn't know what I was doing, as we often will admit. And then eventually, after 3 years at the center at La Vista Alternative School, I became an administrator. Chris Medina gives me a call the summer in July and says, we just lost our principal. Do you want to take it over? I'm 26 years old. Don't have a master's degree. I'm like, yes, I'll do it. And like an idiot, I did it, and that's how I started, and not knowing what I was doing. But what I did know is that I needed to lean on the faculty that was there, the people who were there before me. And I told them straight up, I need help. I need help leading. And that's how I've always led, is by working together collaboratively with others. And as you may hear from our panelists too. Let's see, and then from there, went off to the professorship at UCM, and then eventually doing KC, finished my degree from NU, and certification within that time too. Not knowing what I was getting myself into really, always, just stepping in through those doors, those opportunities. And we are here today. I was a faculty member at LEC for a while, preparing future administrators with all the responsibilities, courses, and assessments that need to happen as you earn your credentials here in the state of Missouri. What I need to do is learn more about Kansas, because we often just serve Missouri folk, really. And most school districts in Kansas City, Kansas will not send their candidates over to universities and their credentials. And that's what I did that with. So that's my downfall there. I need to learn more about Kansas, the Kansas credential. So here we are. I'm proud to introduce you to this panel of leaders within our Latino community. And they're going to tell us their little story of why they left the classroom and why leadership. Please, would you like to begin?
I came from a family of educators. My dad taught at the collegiate level biochemistry. Stepmom was an elementary teacher. My aunt was an elementary teacher. Uncle was a behavior interventionist per se back then. So education was in our blood. 7th grade came around, had that teacher in 7th grade. I knew in 7th grade I wanted to be a teacher. My freshman year came around, and it hit me that I want to become a principal and a superintendent. As a freshman, our high school had a job fair, job shadowing day, and everyone went to the zoo or the radio station or the police station, and I stayed in my building and went to my superintendent's office and hung out with him as a freshman. So I just knew that moment that education was in my blood, and I feel there is a calling, and I got it early, and I stuck with it, and that's something that I want to make sure I continue. And my son is kind of he's 21, and he's debating on he's going to get an ASL endorsement through Washburn University, and I'm trying to get him to connect that to the education world. He was an education major his freshman and sophomore years in college, but I think he wants to finish in a different direction. So there's that.
Yeah, so I sort of took the non-traditional route to education. My original degree was actually in business administration at UKC, and I was involved in a program at the end of my senior year called Inroads, which is a program to place African American and Latino students going into business or engineering into basically Fortune 100 companies for internships. And so my oldest brother, he went to Pitt State and he was a business major, and I wanted to do what my oldest brother did. So I did, I was like, well, I'm going to go that route. Applied to this Inroads program, got into it. It was a great company. I worked for GE Financial Services throughout each summer of my college years. And the whole goal of that program is to place you in a middle management position. Again, with the idea of placing people of color into more mid-management roles within these companies. So I got that. At the same time, growing up in Argentina, Kansas City, Kansas, I was involved in coaching my little brother's team, working with youth. I really enjoyed that. That always was in the back of my brain, working with youth. But I went this route, the business route. Got a really, they ended up placing me in a management development program for GE Financial for 2 years. So I was moving around the country 6 months at a time, learning a different part of the business. And so got done, got placed back in Kansas City, in the Kansas City office, but I just really wasn't feeling any passion. I knew that, it was not going to be for me. I really needed to do something different. And at the time, my wife, my fiance at the time, she was a teacher in KCK public schools, and she encouraged me to pursue this route. I actually had known Dr. Pacina's sister-in-law, Ana Malgoza, was in Inroads, and she was telling me, she's like, do you ever think about going into teaching? you know, not a whole lot, but you know, it's been kind of working with youth in the back there. Like, you gotta go visit this school, Alta Vista to the west side. You know, I'll set you up with an appointment with my brother-in-law. You know, they're hiring for a teaching position. I'm like, I don't even have a teaching degree. So, nonetheless, after that, I just kind of stuck with me, and I went to an interview with Dr. Piscina, and just really, you know, for those of you who've been to the original building on 17th and Holly, you pass it up not knowing it's a school.
Yeah.
I thought it was Primitivo at first. I was like, oh, this is a great building. This is beautiful. No, that's not Alta Vista. Go around the corner, pass up the Holly building, and I'm like, you know, this can't be. Yeah, is there a school there? This can't be it. So, nonetheless, it was it. Walk in, of course, and just felt it right away from meeting Graciela at the front office, going into different classrooms, meeting some of the teachers, meeting kids, and then interviewing with Dr. Piscina. Lo and behold, he called me back, talked about the alternative teaching program, which it allows people with a bachelor's degree to teach while they get their teaching degree. So I went that route, made the jump. We didn't have any kids at the time. We didn't have a mortgage at the time. Our cars were paid off. I had, you know, just my student loan, which was not that much. And so my ex-wife now encouraged me. She's like, well, if you're going to do it, you need to do it now. So I took about a 50% pay cut.
Wow.
To go into teaching, from business to teaching. So but it was, I felt the passion from the first day.
I would have given you more, man.
You know what? I still have the contract. It was $22,500.
Wow.
So, and I was making about 43 with GE Financial, but it wasn't about the money for me.
Yeah.
It was about the calling, as you said. I felt that the moments that I started in that classroom, and yeah, I loved it. Fell in love with it, and I've been in education ever since.
So why leadership?
Leadership. So that, yeah, because I love teaching. But Gil tapped me on the shoulder and he said, you know, I see some leadership potential in you. You're gonna have to go back to school. You know, get your administration degree, get your master's. He helped. They did a tuition reimbursement program at the time, so they helped pay for my master's degree, and that was you know. So I was like, oh, okay. So then I did the admin, you know, the assistant principal role while I was getting my admin, and then at the time that I finished, the principal ended up leaving, and so then I applied, and Gil was like, hey, it's your time. You need to be principal, and so moved into that role, and at the time, so for those of you who don't know, Alta Vista started as an alternative program, as Dr. Piscina mentioned. My first year teaching, we had about 70 students total, and we have grown ever since. We outgrew that building at Holly, and with our high school program. But not only that, we got involved in a couple of grants through National Council La Raza, which is Unidos US, and it was the early college program. That was in 2008. And we knew that we were going to need more time with our kids to prepare them for that program. So we went back to UCM, our charter sponsor, to see if we could start a middle school, knowing that we would have more years to get our kids ready. And so they agreed. And so in 2012, we started middle school. A couple of years later, our middle school teachers and principals were like, well, you know, we really need to start earlier because kids are still coming to us with some gaps in reading and math. So we went back to our charter sponsors and asked if we can open an elementary school. So, 2010 was the middle, 2012 was the elementary. So now we're a pre-K through 12 program with Guadalupe Center Schools. We're serving close to 1,500 students, 96% of which are Latino, 70% of which are English learners. And I'm just really proud of the work that we've done in all of our buildings, but particularly at the high school with real world learning. Our kids are doing all kinds of different programs, internships, early college, client-connected projects. They're getting real business world skills and industry skills, not just college, and they're leaving us prepared for life. So that's our vision and our mission, and that's what attracted me, and that's why I'm still there. But yeah, and I'll be an assistant superintendent next year, moving into that role. So looking forward to that.
Luis, why
Well, leadership was something that was not really on my radar growing up. Okay, my dad was a doctor, and he was seen as a leader in the community. You know, that was the first leadership role that I really looked at from that standpoint. And when I told my dad I wanted to go into education, you know, coming from a family of teachers and knowing what the salary was, he said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this?" And when he knew that this is what we wanted, he said, "Okay, then you need to go as far as you can up that ladder." And that was when I started thinking, okay, what does that look like? You know, and that's when, as a freshman in high school, I'm looking at our principal, I'm looking at our superintendents, because that was instilled. So that was something that I needed to push myself on. Working with my students now, I take that same approach with them. You know, I don't care what you want to be when you grow up, as long as you're the best, as long as you're a leader in that position. So having this opportunity as a leader, especially in our building, as you were referencing your numbers, you know, 1,200 students, we're around 55% Latino students, 30% African, and international, and then another 15-20 Asian, and then the rest were just a mixture of everything else. And so having 50 plus languages in our building allows me to share that leadership role and that message to so many different cultures, and that has been a great return on investment when it comes to seeing our students taking these roles and knowing that there is, you know, when you hear that message, I don't care what you are, as long as you're the best. That was the message that was instilled in us, and we make sure our students are in positions to become leaders by putting them in roles as much as we can in our own building.
Mr. Chairs? You were part-time.
I only went in jeans and an apron because I taught ceramics today. And then a Latino principal, I had my administration degree. I probably sat on it for a few years. And I only got my administration degree because as an educator, you have to do your master's, right? And I've done a couple different masters, and this is my third one. I was like, I gotta see it through. And he was like, okay, you gotta stick with one because these credits aren't transferred, so stick with one. So I got my administration degree and kind of sat on it. Our children were little. I just had our last baby during my degree. In fact, my final project, I had to step out and nurse by a newborn. So I just sat on the degree and went part-time. And then a Latino principal said, hey, I'm getting ready to leave. I need an assistant principal. I see you have your administration degree. I would like you to apply. But not me. Not me. I'm a part-time art teacher. And I remember telling them, I don't even know what's going on half the time. I don't even know what's going on half the time. It's okay. But I went home and talked to Tommy, and I was like, guess what happened today? And it was the middle of the year. And I was like, I don't know. You know what? I really don't know if I could do this. And he encouraged me, just, you know, do it. So I went ahead and applied. I went to an interview in my ceramics apron full of clay, and I didn't even know I was interviewing. I had an associate Sue, one of the assistant principals, came to my class and said, hey, Steve Garrett wants to visit with you. And I thought, oh, okay. So I went there and talked to him. And literally about 10 minutes in, I went in my head like, oh shit, this is an interview. I didn't know he was interviewing me. And that was it. So I moved into administration and was an assistant principal for a couple years at J.C. Harmon. And then we were both high school administrators, and that was really tough raising a family because we still had little ones. And so we both had very early hours and late nights. And so that's when I chose. I said, I've got to go down to the elementary. This wasn't, you talk about that balance. We weren't able to balance. I was able to do that because my mother was retired and lived within a couple miles of us. So she would literally come every morning to get my kids ready while we left for school, wake them up, drop them off at school at their different
elementary, middle schools, and then would pick them up and be there with them every day after school, afternoon snacks, starting their homework, while we finished up in the evening. So I was able to create that balance because of a family member, but I don't think I would have been able to stay in administration had I not had that family support to create the balance. But what I realized is I was missing out on my family time. As a mom, I wasn't there to get ready for bed all the time. You know, if I had a basketball game or I had a supervision of a play and he was doing different things. So I went down to elementary and did elementary for quite a number of years. And then, you know, it's funny, once you move into administration, I can't imagine going back to the classroom. There's another level of having a voice and leading a group. I think it would be very difficult for me to sit back and not like see something that needs fixed, like why are these kids not being serviced and me not being able to do something about it. So I kind of just ended up staying in administration after that, and and then I just did elementary, and then so I stayed in KCK for 27 years, and I loved it, but there were so many pay freezes that I stayed at, and again, you don't do it because of the money, right? You just stay but it was many pay freezes, and I didn't care. I loved my little school in Armadale, but I was getting close to retirement, and so at 4 years, because as you know, they take the top 3 years, right, and average it together, and so when I had 4 years left, somebody said, hey, there's an associate principal open in Shawnee Mission. We want you to apply. I was like, oh, no, I love my school, but all right, I'll throw my name in the hat. Lo and behold, I got it. But those 4 years, I had to do something. It's like, I did not realize how underpaid I was until I went to another district. And I was like, you're going to pay me how much? And I go, that's how much you're going to pay me. I didn't know. I was like, and for years he said, you're not getting paid with what you're worth. And he told me that over and over. He was like, yeah, but I really do. So I ended up retiring to the Shawnee Mission and then came over to this wonderful school called James Elementary. If you guys have not been there, it's a beautiful little school. It's just right up the street. Please come.
Yeah.
Please come. It's a little hidden treasure.
Yes.
And I've only been there a year. The kids are so beautiful. It's this wonderful ELL population that just, it's where I felt at home. It's where I was in KCK for so many years. It's the teachers that I'm working on. There's just veteran teachers.
That's something that you all will come to agree that you understand. The kids are cool.
Oh yeah.
The kids are fun.
Yeah.
It's the adults that we do also have to teach. And that's something I learned as a pair of administrators.
Yes.
In getting the teacher leaders to understand, okay, your role previously was to educate the children within the 4 walls to 9 months or better, right, of their academic abilities. But when you step to the other side of the desk and you become the principal or part of an administrative team, you then now are responsible for the education, the preparation, professional development, and the growth of the adults in the building. And that's something that's hard and difficult to understand because that's a whole different role that we don't know because we're so used to teaching children or youth. And we know all of the things that come with youth and all the challenges, behavioral challenges, and just growth challenges and whatnot. But then we realize, oh man, these are challenges with adults. But then it is the responsibility. If our teachers don't grow, guess who does?
Yeah.
The kids don't. And that's something that we often have to help our teacher leaders understand. You need to be better as an instructional leader because that's how our school is going to go. Another lesson learned, be aware of what you're wearing because you never know when they're going to pull you out for an interview. Leanign told me as I was taking my 3rd portfolio to an unnamed school district around here that had gotten lost. We're from the 90s, right, way back then. And so I'm taking my 3rd portfolio down to 10th McKee's
Mm-hmm.
No,
McGee.
McKee. They used to call it 1013 McKee or something like that. That was the name.
Oh,
the old school building.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking it in. I'm in my chanclas. I'm in my shorts.
Oh,
and
no.
a t-shirt. And Leanign goes, you better go dressed up because you never know. I'm walking my stuff in, and one of my friends says, hey, the principal from Southwest $18,000, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Michelle, your ascension into leadership, why did you want to go into it, and what took you out of the classroom?
As I mentioned, I was also staff. From the moment I started at FLA for Language Academy, that was 12 years ago. I started with KCPS 14 years ago at James as a PE teacher. And we PE for a couple years until when I found out about FLA and the mission of the school and the language immersion school. So we focus on developing bilingual students. So that's it. That's what I want to do. So I moved there from the moment I stepped in. Dr. Alman at the time was the principal. She's retired now. She was like, well, I need you to lead this group of teachers. I'm a brand new teacher. I don't know what I'm doing. Because they need help getting their Missouri certification, and because of the language, they keep, they're struggling to get it done. So she asked me to develop professionals for them and help them get their certification. Still don't know what I'm doing, so go for it, I'll do my best. So help the teachers get certified. Then after that, there was this non-profit organization that came to Kansas City. I don't know if you've heard of Leading Educators. And Dr. on was like, they came to talk to her, like, do you have any teachers that, would be a good fit? And she threw my name there. And I had a little one, I just had he was 1.5, he's now about to go. So I was like, struggling with, I don't know if I should do this, it's a 2-year commitment, and then that's sacred. That time for me was sacred. But with my husband and my mother-in-law support, I went through it, and then after that, my current principal, Dr. Ramsdell, continued to just throw leadership opportunities at me. It's like, hey, we need, with all the changes in our district, new initiatives will come in. It's like, okay, you're going to be our building rep, or you're going to be the literacy leader, or you're going to do this. Okay, I'll do it. And then until at one point he said, it's like, have you considered going into school administration? It's like, not really. But with what I noticed, I did love working with teachers and helping them in any way I could. But it was taking time from the classroom as well, and that's one thing I didn't like either. Like, if I need to be there 100%, and it was hard to do both. So he provided every opportunity possible. Like whenever he had a district meeting, he once took me to they got a consult with the superintendent. And it's like, oh, she's just shadowing. And I just sat there. And he was great about providing those opportunities. And I just fell in love with the idea of being in school and helping teachers, become better. And here I am now. The opportunity opened up, and Dr. Rep was like, yeah, you're in. So it's my first year. I just finished my first year.
Congratulations.
And you notice that sometimes we purposely going backwards or way ahead of us, and we're in positions of leadership, and then have to get our credentials backwards, I guess, if you wanted to call it that way. Or you have your credentials and you're ready. Many times, many of our graduates from UMKC would earn their credentials and not really want to step into leadership now, for whatever reason. And the reminder was that don't worry about it, it goes dormant. You can reactivate it when you get that position. And that's what many leaders do, is they'll wait and then step in when they can and when they're able and when they're ready.
And that was part of me too. I finished and there wasn't a position open in my school. And I was not ready to leave my school. Like, I really love what we do and our program and our mission. And so I just waited. And then last year, our vice principal retired, went to KCK, and that was an opportunity. That's what I wanted to do.
And if you listen carefully, Michelle had lots of different leadership opportunities, and that's something that I'm going to want to ask you all next. What advice you would give teacher leaders now to do now to prepare for that ascension into leadership or that role or into coursework, because it does help. It does help. Tommy, why leadership? Why did you leave the classroom? What happened?
It was all accident. Everything about my education is really an accident. I really didn't know what I wanted to do as a kid. My parents were laborers, custodians, and cleaned the school, I love the school, so we could go to school there, actually, because it's so they knew the kids. I like school, I was in them all day. You know, I got to go to the gym, play, I think I got to clean the room. But I think, for me, it was to get out of school, get out of K-State. The shortest path, I've been here forever. I didn't get out of here, so they said, well, you gotta know.
Seniors,
So it was all accident. But then I thought, I can coach, I love sports, so I thought, I'll do it. And so I did. Taught for a while, so it was great times, coaching basketball, teaching. Tough school. Kids didn't really come to learn, they enjoyed the game for breakfast and lunch. And then social gathering, basically we had core leadership, core teaching. In fact, I remember a friend of mine, he was basketball, he came in my classroom one day, sitting on his desk. I'm thinking, what are you doing here? His nickname was White Shadow. He goes basketball with me, he's a white guy, so I nicknamed him White Shadow. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm watching you teach. He said, you actually teach. He said, I said, you really want to think you teach? He said, you need to get out of my classroom. And so we talked afterwards. I said, he said, that was the climate of the whole school. It's a bit of a tough place. But then when I went to Kansas City, Missouri for the 2 years, Sabine Gonzalez, who's still a friend of mine, asked me to do administration, so that's how that happened. All accidental. It wasn't planned. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was tough. It's been a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I think you learn more about yourself than anything. You have to lead people who are always on the same page. And even more difficult when you have people who see the world differently than you do. They might see it from a blue lens of eyes. See it from a different upbringing. Whether their parents were professionals, have they been through the struggle or challenge? I grew up very poor, so I can relate to almost all my kids, right? And so I think that's been very helpful for me. Grew up with a lot of challenges, alcoholism, drugs, and so forth. So I think that's been helpful for me to relate to kids, mental health. So a lot of things that I've experienced as a kid, as a young teacher, as an administrator, and as a parent, I've been able to take that, whatever I've learned from my own children and my wife, and use that in schools. And so I think for me, I'm grateful for the accidents, but it's been a tough road in many ways. But I don't think I changed any of it. It's just been a great time.
So leads me to our next question. Luis, you're going to start off again. Please. What are your greatest attributes for leadership? What is it that you're good at that makes you a successful leader? And what do you still?
Well, I feel that building community is something that I really take pride in. In my previous buildings, we have a very close-knit family, and I feel like we can create that. Coming over to the East, I was moved there in the middle of a school year, 17-18 school year. I was the principal at Whittier Elementary, and Dr. Burdell asked me to come over to East in November. And I think part of the reason why he asked me to go there was not just the success in data points, but the culture piece and reestablishing a culture and getting everyone to have a common vision and feeling part of a team. And so I feel that's something that's one of my strengths is getting everyone to work together in a common goal. Something I'm still trying to work on. I'm always looking at everything. And there's not one thing that I feel like I want to improve in every aspect of leadership. I felt moving to East, learning to delegate was something that I had to learn. We go from having one vice principal part-time to 4 vice principals full-time. So that trust piece of the trust piece of working with an admin team that I feel like I can trust, and to be honest with you, I've been fortunate enough to be there 5 years, and 2 out of the 4 VPs have been district VPs of the year. And so and allowing them to have that trust and putting them in positions to be leaders think it is a reflection of the team that we have. And we have strong teammates and we support each other.
So in addition to the growth, professional growth of the teachers, your role, you see your role also as a leader who grows other leaders within your sphere of influence.
That is something that I've always wanted to do, is make sure that we grow from within. When I was at Whittier, it's funny because I had seven teachers lined up that if I left, I knew who'd go to this one. If the VP left, I knew who'd go here. So we were 7 people deep in leadership roles. East, the same thing. We have teacher leaders that we put in positions and asked to take more active roles. I feel at East there are several teachers that are potential leaders that haven't really embraced that role, but we're still trying to get them. Something that I want to just make sure I shout out here to Tommy. Ben Richardson is one of our vice principals, and he's one of the best educators I've been around. And we were just talking about the culture of our building, and when Tommy was over at East, he did a great job setting up the building for success. There were a lot of teachers that were no longer there that I guess needed to move on, you know. And when I took over, it was an administrator after Tommy that I took over. A lot of the things that had already been instilled and set, we were just building upon. So it was just something that it was cool to be able to see the influence Tommy had left and being able to build on that piece at East.
So the culture was set for success, and you built on.
Yes, there's pieces there. I don't know how many teachers at that time were with him, but there were enough pieces there that we were able to continue moving in that direction of developing our staff.
So research tells us that if we have that critical mass, it doesn't have to be everyone, but just that critical mass of those willing to move forward, those willing to continue to learn, those committed to changing the culture most constructively, you can turn that ship. What do you think?
That's true. And the buy-in is what is your perception? The first thing that I asked our VPs to do when I first got there was, we're going to serve breakfast. And I made pancakes for the 120 staff members that we have there, including custodial, security, everyone.
Okay.
And I asked each of the VPs to help me with this. And at first they thought it was just a nice gesture, you know. But after it was over, I said, you know, this was a symbolic piece here. This is a servant leadership. We will always serve. So once a month, pre-COVID, once a month, I made pancakes or did things, and I served our teachers because they're the ones in the trenches, and we don't know everything, and so we go to them. And I feel our admin team, if there's anything that they got out from me, it is that servant leadership, that we are there to support our teachers. We're not there to make them do what we want to do. You know, there's a big difference there. So being able to do that was huge.
Thank you very much. Lewis was called in the middle of the school year, and I remember him calling me on his way to the central office. And like that call, I want to know what was going on at East. So what happened is after I left, and our team really, we had a solid team, put together a great staff, all those teachers in the school, any place else except for maybe one. But it was a really good team. It took years to build that. But I was, wasn't a great principal, I don't believe, but I was getting a building team. So I was serving myself, people who knew what they were doing. Yes, I took the basketball, out of my basketball coaching background. So that every team was down there, scores, everybody was passers, everybody was playing against. So I took that. We were able to build a solid school for 10 years. After that 10 years, it was a solid school, really well recognized throughout the district, the state, and the national level. They brought in the wrong person and ran on the teacher off. Really started to fall apart. Teachers were
Thank you for setting up.
Yeah, and I know it's tough because when I first got there, we had, work with some teachers, make sure the right people on the bus before you can do anything. So I just wanted to share that because I know you're being honest about why they called you. Thanks for all the students you saved.
Yeah, that's, thank you.
Great kids, everybody, just great kids.
Yeah.
Any questions so far?
Did you ever, and then you changed your mind, was there a critical moment that you, turned around?
Did you ever want to quit?
Or not serve as an administrator?
This would probably be my best year. There were times when I went home and I was like, why did I retire? Why did I? But it was compounded. I probably chose the wrong year to jump states in the middle of a pandemic. So it was even more isolating. I did not have a network. And as you mentioned earlier, leadership can be very isolating. It's a very lonely job. I moved into a new school, a new state, a new district. I knew no one. I did not even know my boss. I didn't know who to call. When questions came up, it took me 10 times longer to find out a simple question. Factored in, it was a pandemic, and so we were all on Zoom. So I didn't even connect with any other principals. So this would be my first year out of all my years. I came home and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Why? I came home feeling lonely and sad and not like I was doing a good job. But other than this, but again, I probably chose the wrong year to go, oh, let me try a new district in a new state and work on my certification. I jumped the line, like, oh, and yeah. And then I had to take college courses, and then there was that whole thing. But other than this year, I never went to it. I don't know.
And who was there for you?
Can I jump?
And that's critical. I mean, that's,
Well, there's the support.
yeah, the
Yeah.
support that comes. Yeah.
I'd love to jump in on that too, just to say, I think it's underestimated how much isolation impacts the longevity of someone's career, and really in any sector, but in particular in education. It's a lot of what we hear as an organization about why people are leaving. I can't relate to anybody. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to call. And Josie, you coming from a situation where you knew who was your HR person that you could call and get it done. You knew who was your food service person you could call and get it done, right? And so that isolation of, in general, let alone, and, we focus a lot on Latino retention and Latino student success rates and all of that. But the underestimation, I think, as a society that we have on when you feel alone, how much that's impacting people leaving our profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Factor that in with imposter syndrome. Really damaging.
After years upon years upon years of being successful, that suddenly hit you, you're not an imposter.
Yeah.
And well, it's my first pandemic, and so yours too. How do you make, chaotic leadership, how do you make order out of chaos? Right? You just did. You just did.
So, anyone else? The pandemic. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? Maybe I'm just trying to erase the last few years, but you know what? It is what has driven us to where we are today, right now. I know your teachers as well as many of the faculty members. Man, it came, it hit us. I was on the edge of my bed because I've never been trained on online teaching, and I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? But at some point, we pull ourselves out as educators, as teachers, as leaders. I got myself out of that funk, and I said, I gotta do something. And that's what we do. We step out of that funk and we realize, you know what, I gotta do something. And whatever that is, we move forward. How do you move forward? I guess we go with you. How do you move forward?
Well, specifically about COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Tough situations, how's that? This
Yeah.
having been the latest.
It's not much tougher than that.
That's pretty tough. I think for me, yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna talk a little bit, not necessarily about the pandemic, but the thing that really causes me to think about sometimes about, man, when are things gonna change in education? I think are more systemic issues, right, and the way things are set up. I think being part of Surge, a program that Susanna and I were a part of, I kind of always knew, you know, the way that things are set up, including our public education system. Only certain people are benefit, you know, and I think and it's set up for reasons, right? And I think for me, what caused me to think about, like, how do you really change the systems that are in place that are causing large amounts of students of color, particularly in urban areas across America, to continue to not thrive as others do. And I think, you know, talking about leaving administration, I enjoyed being a teacher, I enjoyed being a principal, but I think the change for me to move on is like, how can I impact greater change at a systemic level? And so I think part of that is like advocacy work that needs to happen, both at the state level and at the federal level, even at the local level. But you just get tired. I get tired of like seeing how things don't change. They remain the same. And even, you know, bringing in COVID, that shined a light on how students in low poverty areas didn't have access to technology as their peers in other areas. Why is that? You know? And so, yeah, I think that
should education is politics, politics is education, it's all intertwined. Do we need to know about that as leaders? Teachers, can we be advocates?
I think so. I think one of the things that actually LEC did recently is they took a group of students to Jeff City to advocate for tuition equity. And we all know what happened in the summer of 2015 when 2 bills were passed in the Missouri Senate that specifically targeted undocumented students. It took away the A+ scholarship, and then they tripled the cost for students to go to public universities. That still remains. And so until we get people that can influence change at that level, things are going to be the same. And so, you know, taking groups of students, taking groups of parents, people that are making decisions, making the laws, those are the people that are going to really make the changes that need to be made. And so I think there's a lot of work that we need to do as educators. I don't think we all went through administration programs, and I don't think that was anything that was really taught about, like, well, how do you advocate effectively on legislative issues that impact your community or your kids? You know, it took a program, I got to be part of the National Institute for Latino School Leaders, which is through Unidos US, and the whole thing is about advocacy and how to raise issues politically at the state and federal level. And so I think there's more programs like that to train leaders and to make those type of legislative changes. But those are the sort of things that I mean, whether it's COVID or anything else, I think there's more work that needs to be done to effectively train leaders to advocate.
We're going to have challenges again. We're going to have, you say, it's going to be pandemic or pandemic. It's going to happen. Maybe this is the time to learn. Joseph, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the experts say it wouldn't be that hard to get back to where we were just a year ago. We could get here very quickly. I think we'll all be much more prepared. Does anybody remember that March where we all the stay-home order came? And I don't know, anybody in education was around spring break, and we got an email like on a Friday afternoon, send all the devices home with kids, because they might not come back after spring break, and we were all like, oh yeah, maybe we'll send them a week, right? And then, do you remember the first time we heard asynchronous? And I remember going like, wait, does that mean we're teaching or no, asynchronous? Which one is that? Because it was like such a new word the first time we heard it.
Yeah.
And now, you know, Zoom is just such a common, we all still attend Zoom meetings on a regular basis.
Yep.
Kids can log on. I think, you know, virtual's just almost become the norm now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're all so much more well prepared. Even our kindergartens, I was at the elementary when the pandemic hit, and we were able to move kids at a kindergarten level. Even my preschoolers were on Zoom, and we were able to make academic gains and connect them socially. But it took a while before we got there. So I think we're way more prepared when it hits in a year or 2 or 3 years. I mean, whenever it hits, we're going to be ready. We don't know. It could come, really, it could come next year, right?
Yeah.
So that could be an argument for supplying and educating and helping families with the digital divide.
Yeah.
They don't have computers. Well, you know what? We all learn throughout the entire world that it's possible to change our lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change their lifestyles now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's almost like you have to know what's coming and then practice the strategies.
And get in their hot spots a little bit faster than what
Yeah.
they need it.
Those
Yes.
policies and plans.
Yep.
Yes.
In what I've learned in the 20 years in academia and what I've read, is that the only way you're going to make systemic changes when there is purposeful, planned, and concerted changes in policies and procedures. But that has to be done. It's the only way you're going to make changes. But once again, they have to be informed, has to be collected, has to be agreed upon, and it has to be carried through. It has to be done. Very good.
And it also has to be systematic, because it was not systematic
No,
this time. Even just jumping into KCPS, I remember getting an email from my associate student, hey, turn in your, what did they call it, the plan.
Safe return to school.
The plan, right, how are you gonna do it, and, you know, the pandemic plan, I can't remember what they call it, right? And I was like, excuse me, can we look at last year's plan? Is that still in place? Can I get last year's plan so that I know what, and there was no guidelines. They're like, oh yeah, here's last year's plan, but it was like a year old. And I was like, wait, no, but there's new things in place. Yeah, so even at a district level, I don't even throw KCP under the bus, but there was not even a system, and we were going to our second year, and they were still asking me to start from scratch to create a plan in case we went virtual, in case it got hit and we went to a stay-home order. And I was expected to start from scratch, and it took me reaching out to other people going, hey, would you all mind sharing your plan that you guys did like within the last 2 years so I don't have to start from scratch? Or, you know what I did is I went back to my old plan that I submitted for Shawnee Mission. And I went, okay, let me pull Shawnee Mission's guidelines. Like, I should not have had to do that as a new administrator to a district, a major district that was already 2 years in on this pandemic. So talk about systematic, and we weren't getting guidelines from the state. You know, I remember when it first hit and I was in another district, we were not getting guidelines. It was very minimal on how to create a plan to teach these kiddos. We were inventing it while we were doing it.
Well, that trend came up, Dr. P, in that as well as like you having admin friends or having admin connects, maybe not even your friends, to say, hey, I don't know how to do this, especially because no one knew what they were doing, right? And you're expected to know the CDC guidelines. You're expected to know the medical guidelines. It always kept changing. Kansas City, Jackson County, right? I hate to pause the conversation here, but I would love for us to get some more socializing in. I know we were kind of socializing before. Lunch is here and getting ready to be served. So, Dr. P, any final questions or thoughts?
Are we finishing the panel session?
Up to you guys. Up to you all. If you all want to continue the panel, I
So right now, 30 seconds of advice for our virtual attendees as well as the attendees we have here. 30 seconds of advice as moving into administration, and then we can just gather and break bread and break some tacos.
Yes.
And talk a little bit later and continue the conversation. Luis, would you like to?
My advice would be to get your hands in as many leadership opportunities as you can and diversify yourself, your experiences, not just working with a teacher to help with strategies. You know, take leadership roles for your social committees and take those different roles and run with them and even assist your admin in any other initiatives as you can.
Yeah, similar to that, I think, visit as many schools as you can, visit with as many school leaders as you can, people in those positions, and just have conversations with them about, how they feel, what led them to where they are, similar to what we shared this morning. What are some challenges that they're facing? How are they overcoming those challenges? Just speaking with people in those roles.
It's important just to show up, like, go to those things that you don't have to be at, but diversifying your knowledge, I think, will only help you when you move into any role that flows in leadership.
And I would say the same, just jump at any opportunity. At first, even if you are not sure what you're doing, building those relationships, can take you a long way. And it shows too that you are willing to roll up the sleeves and get the work done. Whether you are confident or knowing that there are things that you're gonna have to learn yourself, so.
I don't have any earth-shattering advice, but I would say this, don't do what I did. I'm guilty. I was not a serious learner when I was teaching. I didn't take the PD very serious. I could have been a better teacher, I'm sure. Kids loved me. I love them, but I probably could have done a better job. So I think I'd like you to take advantage of the professional development that's being offered. Do your own research, read your own books, talk to as many people as you can. And I think lastly, just know it's not always going to be rosy. It's not always going to work out the way you think it should or could. You're going to have to give and take. But I think education is a great place to be. It's interesting. I wouldn't change any of it. But also know this, the more you speak up, whether it be for teachers or for students, the more you're going to be seen as that person that's not afraid to speak or to speak up on behalf of others. And not always welcome. Depends on the leadership. I would say, follow up with my time at KCMO, there were a lot of ups and downs, and I really get the opportunity to work with someone like Dr. Liddell. All the confidence in the world in KCMO, himself. Dr. Carter is going to do a great job. She's going to carry out the plan that Dr. Liddell has set. And so kudos to all of you that are in Kansas Public School moving forward. I appreciate it.
So I'm gathering networks are valuable. Relationships, building trust. It can change culture. You are the main advocate if you are the lead principal in your team for your community, for the students, for the families, and for that building that you are in, whether you like it or not. And you will be treading in political waters as education is political. So it's something else that we need to get ready for. It's something I was not ready for as a young principal, because I told Dave Sullivan, one of my mentors from De La Salle, man, I don't want to deal with politics. And he said, Ziel, get used to it, man. Because politics and education are tied to each other, and that's what I learned from my mentors. Lean on your mentors, lean on your networks, lean on your professors. If you have some professors or researchers you know, or the authors from the books that you're reading, contact them. That's why they put their email addresses in there. They want you to talk to them, and they're willing to do so. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming in. Can we do this again? Maybe within the year, as we begin to speak more on being leadership and our teacher leaders moving into our positions. The organization is kind